When my mother-in-law's wooden rolling pin crashed into my left tibia for the third time, I clearly heard the dry, sickening snap of the bone shattering. A sharp pain, like an electric shock, surged through my entire body. I collapsed onto the cold tile floor. My vision blurred with tears. The glaring kitchen lights illuminated the aging, anger-twisted face of my mother-in-law, Verna Thorne, and the impassive figure of my father-in-law, Harlan Thorne, who watched the scene with his arms crossed. "That'll teach you to talk back. That'll teach you to complain about my cooking," Verna panted, the rolling pin still raised. "Ever since you entered the Thorne household, you have to follow the Thorne rules. Did you think you were still some entitled sorority girl? You're just a hen that won't lay eggs." I curled up, my left leg bent at an unnatural angle. Every breath brought a fresh wave of agony. I tried to drag myself toward the doorway, my fingers slipping uselessly against the linoleum, leaving faint, sweaty streaks. "Silas, Silas!" I whispered my husband's name. He was my last hope. I heard footsteps coming from the living room. Silas Thorne, my husband, the man who 3 years ago, under the oak trees in Lincoln Park, swore to protect me for the rest of his life, approached the kitchen door slowly. He looked down at me without a trace of compassion in his eyes, only impatience. "What is it now? Again?" He frowned. His gaze landed on my visibly deformed leg, but his expression didn't change. "Silas, my leg is broken." I gritted my teeth, cold sweat soaking my bangs. "Take me to the ER. Please. I'm begging you." Silas crouched down, but not to examine my injury. He grabbed my chin tightly, forcing me to look at him. "Alara, how many times have I told you? You need to be obedient." His voice was terrifyingly calm. "My parents are older. Can't you be a little more considerate? You always have to provoke them until they get mad." I stared at him in disbelief. "I just said the casserole was a little salty, that it wasn't good for her blood pressure. You still dare to talk back?" Verna's rolling pin rose again. Silas raised a hand to stop her, but what he said next plunged me into a freezing abyss. "Mom, that's enough. You broke her leg. Let this serve as a lesson." He let go of my chin and stood up, dusting off his hands as if he had touched something filthy. "Let her stay on the floor and think about what she's done. We'll take her to urgent care tomorrow." Tomorrow. It was 8 in the evening. My leg was swelling like a balloon, and every heartbeat was an agonizing stab. "Silas, you can't. We have to go now, or I'll be crippled." I grabbed the hem of his slacks, pleading in utter humiliation. He easily shook off my grip and looked down at me. "Relax. You're not going to die. This is your punishment for being disobedient. Remember it well." With that, he turned around, wrapped an arm around his mother's shoulders, and walked toward the living room. "Don't be mad anymore, Mom. I ordered that prime rib delivery you love from downtown. It should be here soon. And Dad, didn't you want to watch that World War II documentary? I pulled it up in 4K. The voices of the three faded away, blending with the sound of the TV turning on and their casual laughter. I was left alone in the kitchen, lying on the floor, the physical pain melting into the ice taking over my heart. I closed my eyes, and the tears finally spilled over. 3 years ago, I was a fresh graduate from a prestigious university, the only child my parents had shielded from the world. When I met Silas, he was so tender and attentive, swearing to make me the happiest woman alive. I believed him. Despite my parents' opposition, I moved to Chicago, hundreds of miles away from my home in Georgia. After the wedding, everything changed. Verna started finding flaws in everything I did. My corporate job was too demanding and didn't allow me to take care of the family. My cooking wasn't to her taste. Even the way I laughed became a trigger for her rage. Silas, who initially played the mediator, eventually went silent, and finally began taking his parents' side to criticize me. A year ago, I suffered a miscarriage. Verna called me useless, and Silas began his psychological warfare. I wanted a divorce, but they confiscated all my documents, my state ID, my passport, my credit cards. They monitored my phone. I couldn't even contact my parents. My purse, with my phone inside, was in the living room, completely out of reach. The kitchen window faced an enclosed back patio. Even if I screamed for help, no one would hear me. Time ticked by, second by second. The pain began to numb, and my consciousness wavered. I heard them eating dinner in the living room. The sound of gunfire from the documentary on the TV was punctuated by occasional laughter. "Silas, are you sure she'll be okay?" It was my father-in-law's voice, tinged with a hint of doubt. Don't go soft, Dad. We have to teach her a lesson, or she'll be impossible to control later. Silas's tone was as casual as if he were discussing the weather. A guy from my office, his wife wasn't listening to him, so he roughed her up and sent her to the hospital. Now she's as docile as a kitten. You can't let women get away with murder. But her leg is broken, Verna said. Relax, Mom, I checked online. A fracture heals in a few weeks. We'll deduct the medical bills from her paycheck. And while we're at it, we should make her quit that corporate job so she can stay home and take care of you two. I closed my eyes. My nails dug into my palms until they bled, but what hurt most was my heart. Those words severed the last shred of affection I had left for this marriage. It was the dead of night. They each retired to their bedrooms without anyone coming to check on me. I lay on the freezing floor, my left leg completely numb. The darkness enveloped me like an impenetrable net. But just as despair was about to devour me, a tiny voice echoed inside. Alara, are you going to die here like an abandoned dog? No, I couldn't. Supporting myself on my right arm, the only one I could fully use, I slowly propped myself up. Every inch of movement was pure torture. 6 feet away from me was the corner of the kitchen cabinets. I remembered there was a discreet drawer there with spare utensils, including a rusty manual can opener. Its edge was worn, but it was sharp enough. It took me an hour, maybe more, to drag myself to that drawer. When I opened it, I nearly passed out from the effort. Sweat and tears blurred my vision. The can opener lay there, reflecting a cold metallic gleam under the faint moonlight. I didn't use it to hurt anyone that would only bring more trouble. I used it for something else. I pried open the small ventilation window on the kitchen's back door, a sealed pane I had never paid attention to. It was tiny, but I was thin. Fueled by survival instinct, the pain seemed to recede. Dragging my broken leg, I squeezed through the frame inch by inch and fell onto the grass in the backyard. The Midwestern autumn wind was freezing, but I felt an unprecedented clarity. My phone, my wallet, my ID, everything was inside. Confiscated. I was penniless, with a broken leg, wearing thin pajamas in a backyard in late autumn. But I was free, at least for the moment. I got my bearings and started dragging myself toward the lights of the nearest neighbor's house. The distance of barely 30 feet felt like a marathon. The gravel tore at my palms and knees. My broken leg left a long, winding trail in the dirt. Just before losing consciousness, I reached the neighbor's porch and, with my last ounce of strength, banged on the door. An elderly woman opened it. Seeing my state, she gasped, "Help me." I managed to articulate before everything went black, though I didn't lose consciousness entirely. In the confusion, I felt myself being lifted. I heard the old woman calling 911. I also heard her mutter indignantly, "God damn it." The thorns again. The sound of sirens approached. I was loaded onto a stretcher, and an EMT covered me with a warm thermal blanket. In the emergency room, under blinding white lights, doctors and nurses surrounded me. The X-rays showed a comminuted fracture of the tibia and fibula in my left leg. I needed immediate surgery. "Where is her family?" a doctor asked. I weakly shook my head. "I don't have any here. I'll sign the consent forms myself." "How did this happen?" a young nurse asked, compassion in her eyes. I looked at the ceiling and, with a clear voice, articulated every word. My mother-in-law beat me with a rolling pin. My husband watched me lie on the floor all night. There was a momentary silence in the trauma bay. Then I heard the nurse gasp, and I saw the doctor frown severely. "We need to call the police," the doctor said, containing his anger. "No," I stopped the nurse who was reaching for the phone. "Not yet." Everyone looked at me lying on the stretcher, my broken leg temporarily immobilized, the pain dulled by IV painkillers. Something deeper than physical pain burned inside me. It was no longer despair. It was something cold, sharp, ready to detonate. "Doctor," I addressed the attending physician. "I need a favor. Tell me." I laid out my plan. At first, the doctor frowned and shook his head. But after hearing all the details, he remained silent for a long time and finally nodded. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "I'm sure." My voice was a whisper, but strangely firm. It was my only chance. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room, my left leg wrapped in a thick cast and elevated. Outside, the sky was bright. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of light and shadow on the white sheets. The anesthesia was wearing off, and the pain was waking up. But sharper than the pain was the plan in my head. "You're awake," a soft female voice said. It was the nurse from last night. Her badge read Maeve, RN. "Maeve, I tried to make my voice sound weaker. Thank you. Don't speak. Save your strength." She adjusted my IV, and lowering her voice added, "The police came by this morning. I told them you were still unconscious. As you requested, they haven't gone to your house yet." I nodded. "And your husband contacted the hospital?" "Not yet." I hesitated for a moment. "Are you really not going to press charges right now? What your mother-in-law did is aggravated assault. And your husband—" "I know," I interrupted her with a calmness that surprised even me. "But filing a police report is just the first step. What I want isn't just punishment, but total freedom and justice." Maeve looked at me with doubt, but mostly with empathy. She had probably seen too many victims of domestic violence. Too many cases that ended with them going back to their abusers. "Here." She pulled an old smartphone from her pocket. "Mrs. Gable, your neighbor who saved you, asked me to give this to you. She said there's a prepaid SIM card inside. She also told me to tell you she's willing to testify for you." I took the phone. It was an older model, but it worked. A wave of warmth washed over me. In this strange city, for 3 years, the Thorne family had isolated and monitored me, leaving me with almost no social circle of my own. And in my most desperate moment, the one who reached out was an elderly neighbor I barely knew. Mrs. Gable also said, Maeve added, that more than once she had heard screaming and banging coming from the Thorne house. But every time she tried to call the cops, your mother-in-law screamed at her to mind her own business. "She feels incredibly guilty for not helping you sooner." I shook my head. "No. She saved my life, and that's enough." After Maeve left, I turned on the phone. The contacts were empty. The gallery only had a few photos of Mrs. Gable's garden, but it was enough. From memory, I dialed a sequence of numbers I thought I would never dial again. The phone rang 5 times before someone answered. "Hello?" It was my mother's voice, still thick with morning sleep and a touch of caution. It was an unknown number. "Mom," my voice broke. "It's me, Alara." On the other end of the line, there was a sharp intake of breath, followed by a muffled sob. "Alara? Where are you? You haven't answered us in half a year. Your father and I have been going crazy. The Thornes said you ran off with another man. We didn't believe them, but we couldn't find you. Mom, listen to me." I tried to stay calm. "Silas and his parents have been abusing me. They broke my leg, and I'm in the hospital right now." "What?" My mother's voice spiked. "Which hospital?" "We are flying out right now. Right this second." "No, don't come yet," I said quickly. "Listen to my plan. I need your help, but you can't show up right now. If the Thornes find out I've contacted you, they'll be on high alert." "But Alara, your leg." "I've already had surgery. I'm out of danger." I paused. "Mom, I was wrong these past 3 years. I shouldn't have ignored your advice. I shouldn't have married someone so far away, and above all, I shouldn't have stayed the first time they laid a hand on me. But I see clearly now. I want a divorce, and I want them to pay for what they've done." There were a few seconds of silence. Then I heard my father take the phone, his voice deep, firm, and carrying the weight of a retired Marine. "Alara, it's Dad. Tell me your plan. We have your back on everything." The tears finally fell. For 3 years, for the sake of supposed love, I had hurt the people who loved me most. My parents had firmly opposed this marriage, not because they looked down on Silas's background, but because they saw the control freak hiding beneath his polite facade and the rigid toxicity of his parents. But I, blinded by love, had even been stupid enough to threaten to cut ties with them. I wiped my tears. "First, I need a lawyer. The best divorce lawyer in Chicago, specializing in domestic violence and asset disputes. But the Thornes can't know you hired him." "Done. An old buddy of mine from the service runs a top-tier firm up there. I'll have him contact you." "Second, I need you to help me gather some things." I listed in detail what I needed. Proof of my premarital assets, the statements from the payroll account the Thornes took from me, but which was still in my name, and most importantly, the medical records of the miscarriage I had a year ago, when my mother-in-law deliberately delayed taking me to the ER and I almost bled to death. That miscarriage, My father's voice trembled. It was on purpose? I don't know, I said honestly. But at the time, Verna said it was for the best. Since who knows if it was even Silas's kid? And Silas didn't say a single word to defend me. I heard my father suppress a curse, and my mother crying in the background. And one more thing, I continued. I need you to rent an apartment for me for when I get discharged. A discreet place where they can't find me. Alara, come home. Come back to Georgia with us, my mother pleaded, taking the phone back. I will, but not right now. I looked at my casted leg. I have unfinished business here. Hanging up, I felt a strange serenity. 3 years of fear, humiliation, and self-doubt condensed in that moment into something solid. I was no longer the submissive Alara who sought a little affection in exchange for compliance. There was a knock on the door. It was Dr. Cross, my attending physician. How are you feeling? He checked my IV and the cast. Dr. Cross, I remember you said last night that my fracture might require a disability evaluation. He was slightly surprised, but nodded. A comminuted fracture of the tibia and fibula. Even with a successful surgery, it's highly likely there will be lasting effects on your mobility. If you want the evaluation, I can put you in touch with a forensic medical examiner. Please arrange it, I said. But don't put the result in my active chart just yet. I'll request the official file when I need it. Dr. Cross looked at me intently. Mrs. Thorne, I understand you want a divorce, but in domestic violence cases, it's very difficult to secure evidence, especially when it's not reported immediately. Your mother-in-law could say you fell on your own, and your husband could say he didn't know anything. I smiled, a smile that unsettled him. That's why we need proof, I said quietly. Irrefutable proof. Over the next 3 days, I acted according to my plan. Through my parents, I contacted the lawyer, Mr. Sterling, who came to see me at the hospital in secret. We mapped out a detailed strategy. He told me that since I hadn't reported it immediately, it was unlikely the police would open a criminal investigation unless new evidence surfaced. However, in divorce proceedings, domestic violence is a legally recognized factor that impacts alimony and gives a massive advantage in asset division. The problem is proving it, Mr. Sterling said. I have a way. I told him my plan. Listening to it, he pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. It's extremely risky. But if it works, the Thorne family will pay a very high price. But Alara, are you sure you want to do this? It could be incredibly painful compared to the last 3 years. It's nothing, I said calmly. At the same time, I asked Nurse Maeve to discreetly mention to the families of other patients that in room 304, there was a poor woman whose husband's family had abused her until her leg broke, and that her in-laws hadn't come to see her a single time. The gossip spread like wildfire. By my second day admitted, several family members of other patients were already shooting me looks of pity when they walked past my door. I knew that pity would soon turn into outrage toward my abusers. It was the atmosphere of public opinion I needed. On the morning of the 3rd day, Maeve rushed into my room. They're here, she whispered. Who? Your husband and your in-laws. They're downstairs asking for room 304. She looked at me nervously. Are you really not going to see them? Stick to the plan. I nodded. My heart was pounding, but my voice remained steady. Pack my things and move me to an empty room. Then page Dr. Cross. Got it. Maeve took a deep breath and quickly began packing my personal belongings. Minutes later, I was moved to an empty room in the most secluded corner of the floor. It was far from the nurse's station, quiet and discreet. From the window of my old room, you could see part of the hallway. I sat in a wheelchair hidden behind the slightly ajar door and watched through the crack. A few minutes later, the familiar figures appeared. Silas walked in front with a fruit basket in his hand and an almost mocking expression. He was followed by his mother, Verna, dressed in her best silk blouse, her hair perfectly sprayed. My father-in-law, Harlan, walked with his hands behind his back, as if he were inspecting the place. They stopped in front of the door of 304. Silas knocked. No one answered. He pushed the door open and walked in. He came out a few seconds later, frowning slightly. Where is she? Verna's shrill voice echoed with particular harshness in the quiet hallway. They're probably running some tests, Silas said dismissively. Let's wait a bit. Wait? Absolutely not. I'm going to ask. Verna marched toward the nurse's station, with a voice so loud it could be heard across half the floor. Nurse! Where is Alara Thorne? From 304. We're her family. The nurse on duty was Maeve. She looked up with a professional but distant expression. Excuse me, you are? I'm her mother-in-law, Verna said haughtily. Where is she? Did she run off? My son is kind enough to come visit her, and she has the nerve not to be here. Maeve slowly consulted her chart. The patient from room 304 was transferred this morning. Transferred? Where to? Silas approached with a hint of impatience. I cannot disclose that information. Due to HIPAA regulations, the patient has requested strict confidentiality. Confidentiality? We are her family. Verna's voice went up an octave. I am her mother-in-law. This is her husband. We have a right to know where she is. Their argument attracted the attention of the family members of other patients. Several of those who had previously walked past my room recognized Silas and his family and started whispering. That's them, the ones who broke the daughter-in-law's leg. They look so respectable. But what evil hearts? I heard it took them 3 days to even come to the hospital. The murmurs weren't loud, but Silas heard them. His face darkened, but he tried to maintain his composure. Nurse, my wife has a leg injury. She might not be in a good state of mind. We are very worried about her. Please tell us where she is. Maeve looked up and met his gaze directly. Mr. Thorne, Mrs. Thorne, suffered a comminuted fracture of the tibia and fibula with severe soft tissue crushing and signs of hypovolemic shock. Do you think an injury like that is because she's not in a good state of mind? Silas's expression froze. Verna, however, didn't seem to grasp the gravity of the situation, or simply didn't care. She fell on her own because she's clumsy. What does that have to do with us? We come in good faith to visit her, and we get treated like this? Get your supervisor. At that moment, Dr. Cross stepped out of his office in his pristine white coat, his expression grave. I am Alara Thorne's attending physician, Dr. Alden Cross. You are her family, correct? Yes, I'm her husband. Silas stepped in front of his mother, trying to salvage the situation. Dr. Cross, how is my wife? We're extremely worried. Dr. Cross looked at him in silence for a few seconds. In that span, the entire nurses' station grew so quiet you could hear the beeping of the monitors. All the nurses, patients, and visitors were watching the scene. Then Dr. Cross spoke, his voice clear and deliberate, ensuring everyone heard him. Mrs. Alara Thorne processed her hospital discharge this morning and has been transferred to an inpatient psychiatric facility. According to our preliminary diagnosis, she is suffering from severe post-traumatic stress disorder and severe depression, likely related to a long history of domestic abuse. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. We have strongly advised her to file a police report, and we have issued a medical injury report. The report indicates that her fracture was caused by multiple strikes with a blunt object, which is entirely inconsistent with a fall. He paused again, his gaze sweeping over the faces of the three, who had instantly turned ashen. Furthermore, in her moments of lucidity, Mrs. Thorne has repeated that she is terrified to go home, terrified of being beaten again. Therefore, respecting her wishes and federal privacy laws, we have not disclosed her location to you. If you insist on seeing her, I suggest you do so through the police or your legal counsel. Dead silence. Then, Verna's shrill voice shattered the calm. Lies! He's lying. That bitch fell on her own and now she wants to extort us for money. What domestic abuse? That never happened. But this time, no one took her side. The stares from everyone around them were like needles, loaded with contempt and outrage. Silas's face went from white to red to green. He opened his mouth to say something, but under Dr. Cross's serene gaze and the whispers of the crowd, he couldn't articulate a single word. My father-in-law, Harlan, was the first to react. He grabbed his wife, who was about to keep arguing, and hissed in a low voice. Shut up! Aren't you embarrassed making this scene? Then he turned to Dr. Cross, forcing a smile. Doctor, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Poor Alara. It's true, she sometimes has mental issues. She often makes things up like this. Just tell us which hospital she's at, and we'll go clear things up. I'm sorry. Protecting our patients' privacy is our legal duty, Dr. Cross interrupted him with a tone that brooked no argument. If you have no further business here, I ask that you stop disturbing the other patients. With that, he turned and went back to his office. The door clicked shut, a sound that resonated like a slap across the faces of the three Thorne family members. Under the accusing glares of everyone present, Silas finally couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed his parents and practically fled toward the elevators. As they passed the room where I was hiding, I could clearly see their expressions through the crack in the door. Verna's face was flushed, her lips trembling as she muttered insults. Harlan was livid, staring blankly ahead, and Silas, my husband, the man who 3 days earlier had watched me agonize on the floor, now had a face contorted with panic and disbelief. He was afraid. Afraid of what? That I was actually in a psych ward? That I had called the police? Or that the facade of the perfect family they worked so hard to maintain had completely collapsed? The elevator doors closed, taking them away. I stayed in the wheelchair and softly closed the room door. Maeve walked in, her eyes shining with excitement. Did you see their faces? Oh my God, that was satisfying. I nodded, but I didn't feel the euphoria I expected. Only an icy calm. This is just the beginning, I whispered. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Mr. Sterling. I have compiled part of the evidence. Also, Silas Thorne's company contacted me to inquire about your situation. It seems they received an anonymous tip regarding suspicions of domestic violence and unlawful restraint by Silas Thorne. I replied, "Follow the plan. Let the complaint ferment a little." After the three Thornes left, the room returned to calm, but I knew it was the calm before the storm. They wouldn't just sit on their hands. Maeve brought me a glass of water, looking concerned, especially your mother-in-law. A person like her, after the humiliation today, is going to want revenge. I took the glass. The warmth seeped into my hand. I know. That's why we have to be ready. Just then the phone rang. It was an unknown number, but with a Chicago area code. I signaled Maeve to be quiet. I answered and activated the call recorder. Ilara. It was Silas's voice, restrained. But the effort to stay calm was obvious. Where are you? Tell me right now. What does it matter to you where I am? My voice was very soft, almost weak. It was true. The anesthesia had completely worn off, and the pain in my leg was throbbing again. I am your husband! What do you mean, what does it matter? He raised his voice but immediately lowered it. Ilara, don't be stupid. What happened today is forgotten. Come home and let's talk like civilized people. Come home? I let out a soft chuckle that silenced him for a moment. Back to the house where you watched my leg get broken? To the house where I moaned in agony on the floor while you guys ate prime rib and watched TV in the living room? It was an accident, Silas said hastily. Mom didn't do it on purpose. She just lost her temper. You were at fault too. Why did you talk back to her? Couldn't you just compromise a little? Always the same tune. For 3 years, every conflict was my fault. I was too strong-willed, I wasn't sweet enough, I didn't know how to please them. My job was too demanding, I neglected the family. They were always right. They always wanted what was best for me. Silas, I interrupted him. My voice turned freezing. I have a comminuted fracture of the tibia and fibula. I will need at least 3 months to walk again, and I may walk with a limp for the rest of my life. This was not an accident. It was aggravated assault. And you are an accomplice. What nonsense are you spouting? I could tell he was scared. Accomplice to what? Ilara, I'm warning you. Don't go around spreading stupid lies. If you dare press charges, if you dare say a single word, what will you do to me? I asked. Beat me again? Or like before, take my phone, my ID, my credit cards, and lock me in the house? I heard his heavy breathing on the other end. After a few seconds, his tone shifted, becoming sickly sweet, with the same fake tenderness from when we first met. A tenderness I hadn't heard in 3 years. Ilara, don't be like this. If we have problems, we can sit down and talk. Don't you remember how good we were before? I swear it won't happen again. Come home. I'll make my mom apologize to you. We can start over, okay? If I had been the old Alara, maybe I would have softened. But the Alara of today only felt nauseated. Silas, I said calmly. There is nothing left to talk about between you and me. My lawyer will contact you regarding the divorce. By the way, I already have the disability evaluation report. My lawyer advised me to press charges. Whether I do or not will depend on your behavior. Lawyer? What lawyer, Alara? Where did you get a lawyer? Your parents found one for you, didn't they? I knew it. Your parents always looked down on me and my family, and now they finally found the chance to tear us apart, huh? His voice grew shrill again. The fake tenderness ripped apart, revealing his deep-seated need for control. It has nothing to do with them. I want a divorce for myself, and I'm paying the lawyer's fees with my salary. Got a problem with that? Oh. Right. For years, your mother has held onto my credit card. She only gave me a few $100 a month for my expenses. We'll settle that in the divorce. You, Silas, was furious. Alara, do you really want this to end badly for everyone? I'm telling you right now. You can get a divorce, but you won't see a single cent. You are my wife. What's yours is mine. And don't think that just because you're hiding, I won't find you. I have connections at that hospital. Then try it, I interrupted him, and hung up. My hands were shaking slightly, but I felt euphoric. For the first time in 3 years, I had stood up to him. I had said everything I kept bottled inside. Maeve looked at me, worried. Are you okay? Do you think he can actually find you? No. I shook my head. Dr. Cross already gave the orders. My information is completely locked down. Plus, right now, he has much bigger problems to deal with. Like what? I showed Maeve the message Mr. Sterling had just sent me. It was several screenshots of a popular local Chicago subreddit and a Nextdoor group. The headline was sensationalist and accused Silas Thorne, a middle manager at a prominent tech company by his full name, of continuous domestic abuse against his wife, culminating in breaking her leg. A wolf in sheep's clothing. The author of the post presented themselves as someone with first-hand information and described in detail how Silas and his parents abused his wife, controlled her financially, and how, after breaking her leg, they left her without medical assistance. The post included a photo of me in the hospital with my face blurred, alongside a cropped image of the X-ray. The text was fluent, the details credible, and the tone incredibly moving. This is... Maeve's eyes went wide. Mr. Sterling organized it. I put the phone away. An anonymous tip, but based on actual facts. Silas's company cares deeply about its image. A scandal like this is going to cost him dearly. Sure enough, an hour later, Silas called me again like a madman. I didn't answer. He sent a barrage of threatening texts that escalated from threats to begging, and finally to uncontrolled rage. Alara, you viper, were you the one who posted that? My bosses dragged me into a meeting. Are you happy now? Answer the phone. Let's negotiate. What the F times do you want? How much money? Name your price. I put the phone on silent, ignoring his barking. Did I need to feel sympathy for my enemies? In the afternoon, Dr. Cross came to my room with news. Silas Thorne came back to the hospital. He wanted to see the VP of Operations to investigate your records and whereabouts, Dr. Cross said, his expression serious. The VP was my old medical school professor. I shut it down, but he won't give up easily. On top of that, your mother-in-law is making a scene in the lobby. She's telling everyone the hospital kidnapped her daughter-in-law and is demanding we call the cops. Let her call them, I said. Dr. Cross looked perplexed. It's better if the police come. That way I can file the domestic violence report directly. Even though I didn't do it at the scene, now they are the ones causing a disturbance. If the police show up, they'll have to take statements and file a report. And a police report is official evidence. Dr. Cross looked at me with a mix of emotions. Mrs. Thorne, you are very different from how you were before. Before I was docile, submissive. I always smiled, even if I was crying on the inside. I thought patience would earn me respect. That love could change everything. People change, Dr. Cross, I said quietly, when they have nothing left to lose. After the doctor left, I asked Maeve to contact Mrs. Gable. Half an hour later, The sweet elderly neighbor appeared in my room with a thermos of chicken soup. "Oh, my poor dear, how much you've suffered." She stroked my hand, her eyes red. "I always knew that family was no good. When you moved in, you were so vibrant, and in just a few years, you've withered away." "Mrs. Gable, thank you for saving me." I squeezed her hand. "But I might need your help one more time. You just say the word. If I can help, I will. It's possible the Thorns will come bother you, ask you about that night. If the police come, tell them the truth that you heard the banging and saw me drag myself out. But if they come, tell them you don't know anything, that you went to bed early and didn't hear a thing." Mrs. Gable looked confused. "Why?" "I saw everything. I want to testify for you." "It's not time yet," I explained patiently. "I want them to get overconfident. The higher they fly, the harder they fall. If I present all my evidence now, they'll have time to prepare their alibis, even counterattack. I want to wait until they back themselves into a corner, until they make absolute fools of themselves in front of the police and the whole world. Then, I'll bring out the proof and hit them where it hurts most." Mrs. Gable didn't fully understand, but she nodded firmly. "I'll do whatever you say." By the time Mrs. Gable left, it was dark. The city lights were turning on. From the window of my room, I could see the neon signs of the commercial district. My phone lit up again. This time it was my mother-in-law, Verna's number. I answered and said nothing. "Alara, listen to me closely." Her voice was shrill and aggressive. The background noise was loud. It sounded like she was still in the hospital lobby. "I don't care what game you're playing. Get out here right now, or you're going to regret it. Do you think because you're hiding, this is over? Let me tell you. My son found you once, and he'll find you 100 times. And I know where your parents live in Georgia. Do you think I'm not capable of flying down there and making a scene at their jobs so they can't even show their faces in public?" I listened to her in silence. When she finished screaming, I said softly, "Mom." There was silence on the other end. In 3 years, it was the first time I had called her mom since she broke my leg. "Everything you just said, I recorded." My voice was calm, devoid of inflection. "Threats, coercion, it's all evidence. Keep going. Keep going. It's better if you talk a lot. I'll hand it all over to the police and my lawyer. And if you want to go make a scene where my parents work, go ahead. But my dad is a highly decorated retired Marine colonel, and my mom is a tenured university professor. Who do you think people will believe? A decorated veteran and a respected academic? Or a crazy old bat who broke her daughter-in-law's leg and throws tantrums in a hospital lobby? Who are you calling an old bat? You bitch. You, I interrupted her. Your son's boss has already spoken to him, hasn't he? Do you think if he finds out what kind of scum his mother is, he'll keep him at the company? At the end of the day, an employee who can't even manage his family issues and causes a public scandal all over the city. What company is going to want him? Don't you dare. If you dare make my son lose his job, I'll kill you. You and your son ruined my leg and my life first. My voice finally trembled a bit, but I controlled it instantly. By the way, you'd better warn your son. Under the Reddit post exposing him, someone has already leaked a massive error he made at work that cost the company thousands. When it rains, it pours. How much more dirty laundry do you think they'll dig up? There was dead silence on the other end. Only her heavy breathing. One last piece of advice, I said. Don't call again. Don't cause any more scenes. Wait quietly for my lawyer to contact you for the divorce. If you cooperate, I might consider not pressing criminal charges for the assault. If you keep this up, I paused and articulated every word. I will ensure the Thorn family is left bankrupt and with your name dragged through the mud. With that, I hung up and blocked the number. Then I opened my messages and texted Mr. Sterling. We can move to the next phase. Find a way for Silas's company to accidentally hear the recording of his mother's threats. After sending the message, I leaned back in bed and looked at my casted leg. The pain was still there, but it was no longer unbearable. The day after my call with my mother-in-law, the HR department of Silas's tech company contacted Mr. Sterling again. This time, their attitude was completely different. Mr. Sterling, regarding Mr. Thorne's family matters, the company generally does not intervene. But lately, certain false comments have appeared online that have severely impacted the company's image. The HR director's voice came clearly through the speakerphone in my quiet room. We wanted to know if Mrs. Thorne intends to press charges, and if so, approximately when would that happen? Mr. Sterling looked at me, then answered, "My client is considering pressing charges, but the exact date will depend on the attitude of Mr. Thorne's family." His tone was professional and distant. However, we did not publish the internet posts. As an attorney, I suggest you concern yourselves with whether your employee's conduct violates company policy, rather than attempting to interfere in a domestic dispute. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. "That is an internal matter for your company," Mr. Sterling said indifferently. "My client is only concerned with two things: the divorce and criminal liability for the assault. By the way, yesterday Silas Thorne's mother called to threaten my client. We have saved the corresponding recording. If a similar situation occurs again, we will immediately call the police and consider making part of the recording public." "Threats?" The HR director's voice shifted. "Mr. Sterling, we were entirely unaware of that. Now you know," Mr. Sterling said. "My client desires a peaceful resolution, but on the condition that the opposing party ceases all harassment and threats. Otherwise, we do not rule out taking all legal measures at our disposal." Ending the call, Mr. Sterling put his phone away. Silas Thorne doesn't have much time left at that company. They're trying to land a massive government contract, and they fiercely protect their corporate social responsibility image. A scandal like this? They won't tolerate it. Good. I looked at my phone. Silas had sent me a flood of messages that transitioned from rage to begging, and now to sheer panic. "Alara, I messed up. Let's talk, please. The company is going to fire me. Do you know how hard I worked to get here? My mom knows she was wrong. She just lost her temper. The lawyer says we can negotiate whatever you want. The house, the money, don't ruin me, please." I didn't reply to any of them. In the afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. My father-in-law, Harlan Thorne, came alone with a fruit basket and stood at the door of the room, looking slightly sheepish. Maeve tried to block him, but I shook my head. "Let him in." Harlan walked in, placed the fruit on the nightstand, and stood at the foot of the bed without sitting down. He looked much older than he had 3 days ago, his eyes puffy and his back slightly hunched. "Alara," he said with a hoarse voice. "How is your leg? How does it look?" "Broken, casted, 3 months without walking," I replied calmly. "And I might walk with a limp after that." A muscle in his face twitched. He lowered his head, not daring to look at me. "That day, I couldn't stop your mother." "It's not that you couldn't," I corrected him. "It's that you thought teaching me a lesson wasn't a bad idea. Your son thought the same, didn't he?" Harlan opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. The room fell silent for a long time. The sound of Chicago traffic from the street below made the silence even deeper. "Alara," he spoke again in a lower voice. "Do you really have to get a divorce?" Silas knows he messed up. He really does. Look, he's going to lose his job. That's a hard enough blow. And your mother-in-law, Verna, she regrets it too. She just has a bad temper, but she's not a bad person. We are family. Nothing we can't get over. Why make such a big fuss and push for a divorce?" I looked at him. The man who in my memory was always quiet and submissive to my mother-in-law now had a face full of exhaustion and fear. He wasn't remorseful about my leg or his son's violence. He was afraid the issue would blow up, that his son would lose his job, that the Thorne family would become a laughingstock. Family. I repeated those words and let out a chuckle. "Dad, in these 3 years, have you genuinely considered me part of the family?" Harlan froze. "The first year we were married, you guys asked for my credit card to keep it safe," you said. "Coming home from work, I had to cook, scrub, clean, serve the 3 of you. And if my mother-in-law didn't like something, she screamed at me. Did you ever reprimand her? I was pregnant. I had a miscarriage. I was in the hospital. My mother-in-law called me useless. Did you ever comfort me? This time, with my leg broken, lying on the floor, you were standing right there watching. In that moment, did you consider me part of the family?" I threw one question after another at him. My voice wasn't loud, but every word was like a nail. Harlan's face grew paler and paler, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. I, I thought, he stammered, I thought those were just mother-in-law and daughter-in-law things. Between you women. That I shouldn't get involved. Shouldn't get involved? Or did you simply not care? I interrupted him. In your eyes, I was never family. Just a tool you bought to serve you, give you grandchildren, and on top of that, bring in a paycheck, right? That's not true, Alara. How can you say that? Harlan seemed wounded in his pride and raised his voice. Has the Thorne family not treated you well? We put a roof over your head, food on your plate. Has Silas ever cheated on you? Why are you so ungrateful? Put a roof over my head and food on my plate. I almost laughed. My salary was double Silas's. For 3 years, I handed my entire paycheck over to you people. The mortgage on the house you live in? I pay for it. More than half the household expenses? I pay for them. Who is providing for who? Harlan was speechless. Harlan? I dropped the dad title. My voice turned even colder. You came here today to beg for your son and your wife. To ask me not to divorce, not to press charges, not to make a fuss, right? He hesitated a moment and nodded. Well then, I will give you a clear answer. I looked him in the eyes and, word by word, said, I am divorcing Silas, no matter what. I will pursue the domestic violence charges to the absolute end, and whether the scandal gets bigger or not will depend on your behavior. If you agree to an uncontested divorce, return my 3 years of salary, my equity in the house, and compensate me for emotional distress, all clearly written and legally binding. I might consider not pushing for maximum criminal penalties. If you don't agree, or if you continue to harass me or my family, I paused. I won't just press charges. I will publish all the evidence on the internet. I will go to Silas's company, to your subdivision, to everywhere you are known, and I will tell everyone how the Thorne family broke their daughter-in-law's leg and then threatened her. What do you think will be worse? Your son losing his job? Or the Thorne family never being able to show their faces in Chicago again? Harlan stepped back as if seeing me for the first time. His lips trembled and he pointed a finger at me. You are a viper, Alara. I didn't know you were this evil. Evil? I smiled until tears pricked my eyes. When they broke my leg and I could have been crippled for life, you didn't think that was evil. When I was lying on the freezing floor and your whole family was eating and watching TV in the living room, you didn't think anyone was evil. When I begged for help and your son said it was my punishment for disobeying, you didn't think that was evil. This evil of mine? I wiped my tears, my voice turning to ice. The Thorne family taught it to me, step by step, with your own hands. Harlan finally stumbled out. The fruit basket he left on the nightstand felt like a sick joke. Maeve walked in and quietly picked up the fruit. I'll throw this out. No need, I said. Take it to the break room for the other nurses to share. Tell them it's a gift from my father-in-law. Maeve looked at me, wanting to say something. Do you think I'm too cruel? I asked her. She shook her head, then nodded slightly. I just think you've become very strong. Very different from when you arrived. Because I don't want to die anymore. I looked out the window. The sun was shining brightly. Lying on the kitchen floor waiting to die, I had suddenly realized something. Why do the bad guys always get away with it? Because the good guys always second-guess themselves, always think about the greater good, always endure. Bad people never think about that. They just want to possess. And if they aren't happy, they attack. And if something goes wrong, they dodge responsibility. So, if they really accept the divorce and pay you out, you won't press charges? Maeve asked. I will absolutely press charges, I said calmly. Domestic violence is a felony. Not something you erase with a little bit of hush money. But how I report it. And when. I decide. And the settlement is what they owe me, not a handout. Maeve didn't fully understand, but she nodded firmly. I support whatever you decide. If you need anything, just tell me. By dusk, Mr. Sterling brought new developments. Silas Thorne has agreed to an uncontested divorce. He says the condition is that you don't press criminal charges, don't report it to the police, and don't make any information public. As for assets, he's willing to sign the house over to you, since you pay the mortgage. Plus, he'll compensate you with $20,000. $20,000? I smiled. My 3 years of salary plus bonuses exceed $180,000. And they have all of it. The house currently has about $50,000 more in equity than the mortgage, and it's a marital asset. He broke my leg. I might be left with a lifelong disability. And for the medical bills, lost wages, and pain and suffering, he wants to settle it with 20 grand. It's a first offer. We can negotiate, Mr. Sterling said. But he's asking for it to be done as soon as possible, preferably before you're discharged. He seems to be in a massive rush. Of course he's in a rush. I showed Mr. Sterling some screenshots from the internal forum of Silas's company. Someone anonymously posted more details, including how Silas had accepted kickbacks and falsified vendor invoices. Though they weren't huge amounts, at this delicate time, it was enough to finish him off. His company gave him an ultimatum. Mr. Sterling immediately understood. Either he resigns or he's fired. If he's fired, with the current state of the tech sector, he'll never find a similar job. That's why he needs to settle this with me quickly, so he can go back to HR and claim the domestic dispute was resolved amicably, hoping to save his job or at least get a decent severance package. And what do you plan to do? Stall, I said simply. I neither accept nor reject. Tell him my injury is severe and I need time to think. In the meantime, let the news on the internet ferment for a few more days. Wait for his company to get tired of waiting and fire him. Then he'll truly be backed into a corner. I looked at Mr. Sterling. I don't want a house with decades left on the mortgage, nor $20,000. I want him to taste what desperation feels like. Mr. Sterling looked at me intently and finally nodded. Understood, but stalling too long also carries risks. What if Silas loses his mind completely? That's why the recording of his mother's threats needs to accidentally reach a company executive, I said. Let them know the Thorne family doesn't just abuse, they threaten the victim. That way, the company, eager to distance itself, will cut ties even faster. Mr. Sterling took notes, stood up to leave, but paused. Alara, there's something I don't know if I should ask. Go ahead. How long does the satisfaction of revenge last? He asked bluntly. After the divorce, you have a whole life ahead of you. Is it worth dedicating so much time and energy to these people? I stayed silent for a long time. Outside, the sun was setting, dyeing the horizon blood red. Mr. Sterling, I'm not doing this for revenge, I said quietly. I'm doing this so that in the future, every time I wake up from a nightmare and touch a leg that might never fully recover, I can tell myself I did everything I could, that I made the people who hurt me pay for it. That way, I can truly move forward and not stay trapped forever in that kitchen on that night. Mr. Sterling nodded, said nothing more, and left. The room returned to silence. I picked up my phone and texted my parents to let them know I was okay. My mom replied immediately, saying they had already leased the apartment, paid the retainer for the lawyer, and told me to recover peacefully and fear nothing, that they would always be my support. The last sentence made me cry. It was true. I had support. I wasn't alone. And Silas would soon discover that the woman he thought he could control and trample on had a force behind her he couldn't even fathom. The news that Silas had agreed to an uncontested divorce was like a stone skipped across a pond. It caused ripples I hadn't expected. At noon the next day, I received a call from Verna from a new number. Her voice sounded strangely exhausted. Even with a hint of pleading, I had never heard from her. Alara, she started. For a moment, I thought I had the wrong number. I want to talk to you. I said nothing, waiting for her to continue. Look, Silas knows he messed up. He really does. You get the house and a payout. Can't we just part ways in peace? Why make such a big fuss so everyone laughs at us? She paused and lowered her voice. I apologize. That day I was wrong. I lost my mind. You know how I am. When I get mad, I lose control. If you had just compromised a bit, I wouldn't have— Excuse me, I interrupted her smoothly. Are you referring to when you broke my leg? There was silence on the line. If that's what you mean, I don't accept it. My voice was very calm, devoid of anger. Apologies are for unintentional mistakes. You picked up a rolling pin, and 1, 2, 3 strikes until the bone snapped. That is aggravated assault. If I had had a knife in my hand at that moment, who do you think would be in the hospital right now? You. Her facade cracked instantly, and her voice turned shrill again. Alara, I am giving you a chance. Don't get smart with me. The house is already a lot. What more do you want? Do you really think the Thorne family is afraid of you? Then, let's not negotiate, I said. Let Mr. Sterling talk to you. And by the way, I've already handed the recording of your threats from yesterday over to my lawyer. If I receive another harassing call, or if you bother my parents, that recording will immediately land on a detective's desk and on Silas's boss's desk. You recorded me, you bitch? You dared to record me? She screamed. Why wouldn't I dare? I asked. You dare to beat people with blunt objects, but I can't press record? And don't call me a bitch again, or I'll show you exactly what a cornered bitch is capable of doing. With that, I hung up. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. This time it was Silas, from another unknown number. Alara, what the F do you want? His voice was hoarse, exhausted, and furious, like a drunkard's. My mom apologized to you. We're giving you the house, the money. What else do you want? Do you have to ruin us all to feel satisfied? Silas. I leaned back in bed and looked at my cast. Right now, you're suffering, aren't you? He was momentarily stunned. Your company dragged you into a disciplinary meeting. You're about to lose your job. You're suffering. Your mother had to swallow her pride and apologize. You're suffering. Your father is caught in the middle, not knowing what to do. You're suffering? I threw question after question at him. You. Well, let me tell you something. I interrupted him. During these 3 years, every single day of my life has been 100 times more painful than what you're feeling right now. When I was lying on the kitchen floor with a broken leg, listening to your entire family eat and laugh in the living room, I suffered 1,000 times more than you, Silas. This is just the beginning. Everything you did to me, I will return to you, piece by piece. On the other end, I heard heavy panting, followed by the sound of something shattering. He was smashing things. You're crazy, Alara. Are you insane? He screamed. Yes, you made me insane. I smiled. Enjoy it, because this has only just begun. I hung up again. Blocked the number. The world fell silent, but I knew it was a brief lull. Neither Silas nor his mother were the type to give up, especially Verna, who was used to getting her way. This time she had hit a brick wall, and she wouldn't sit idly by. Sure enough, that afternoon, Maeve rushed in, looking grim. Alara, your mother-in-law is back. This time she brought 2 other people with her. They look like relatives. They're making a massive scene in the lobby, saying they want to see you, that the hospital has you kidnapped, and they want an explanation. Security is holding them back, but they're making a ton of noise, crying and screaming, and a huge crowd has gathered. Security stopped them? Yes, but they threw themselves on the floor. Dr. Cross already informed administration, but this is giving the hospital a terrible look. Plus, they seem to know you're roughly on this floor. They're watching the elevators and stairs, asking everyone they see where Alara Thorne from 304 is. I frowned. It seemed Harlan's visit yesterday gave them a clue. Or maybe Silas really did have some contact at the hospital. What exactly are they saying? They're saying you're crazy, that you have violent tendencies, that you beat your mother-in-law at home and self-harmed, and now you're hiding in the hospital to falsely accuse them. Maeve was furious on my behalf. What a pack of lies. It's unbelievable. I say we call the cops. Let them call the cops, I said. Who? Let administration call the police and report that people are disturbing the peace and defaming a patient, I said calmly. Let them handle it. But if the cops come, they'll definitely claim, let them say whatever they want, I interrupted. The more they say, the better. Maeve, take your phone and record the whole meltdown. Especially when they say, I hit them and self-harm. Don't miss a single word. Maeve's eyes lit up. Got it. Evidence. Exactly. And tell Dr. Cross and administration not to get involved directly. Let the police handle it. If they need my statement, I'll give it. But I won't see them before that. Maeve nodded and hurried out. I picked up my phone and texted Mr. Sterling. The Thorns are causing a scene at the hospital. Police have been called. Get ready. We can move to the next phase. Mr. Sterling replied instantly. Understood. The documentation is ready. I can send it at a moment's notice. Half an hour later, sirens wailed downstairs. 20 minutes after that, everything returned to normal. Maeve came back euphoric, holding her phone. I recorded everything! Your mother-in-law said it all. She even threw herself on the floor, saying hospital security hit her. Even with the cops right there, she didn't hold back. She kept screaming, When the officer told her to get up or she was getting arrested for disorderly conduct, she got scared and stood up, but they hauled them off to the precinct to sort it out. And the two people she brought? They said they were her sister and niece. At first, they backed her up, but when they saw it was getting serious, they chickened out and said they didn't know anything, that Verna just brought them to make a crowd. Maeve made a disgusted face. What a plastic family. Expected. A family like the Thorns can't have real relationships. And the police? What did they say? They took notes. They took down your info and said when you feel better, they might need a statement. Maeve paused. But the cop seemed a little sympathetic to her. He said your mother-in-law is elderly, that it's normal for her to get worked up, that we should try to be understanding since it's family matters, and try to work it out. I smiled coldly. Always the family matters. Always the understanding. Domestic violence is never just a family matter. It's a crime. But too many people, including some officers, still think it's better not to get involved and mediate it away. It didn't matter. I had patience. At dusk, an unexpected visitor arrived. Silas's direct boss, Director Callahan, a man in his 40s in a tailored suit, carrying a fruit basket, stood at the door of my room looking slightly uncomfortable. Mrs. Thorne, I apologize for the intrusion. I am the director of Silas's department. My name is Callahan. I told Maeve to let him in. Director Callahan, please, have a seat. I pointed to a chair. Callahan remained standing at the foot of the bed, rubbing his hands together. Mrs. Thorne, I've been briefed on your situation. First of all, on behalf of the company, I want to extend our support. We are deeply saddened by what has happened. Thank you. I nodded, waiting for him to continue. Silas. Well, he is capable at his job, but it is true that he has issues managing his family dynamics. Callahan chose his words carefully. The company relied heavily on him, but lately his performance has tanked. He's constantly making mistakes, and the public opinion online is severely impacting the company's reputation. That's why I'm here to ask you directly. My bluntness threw Callahan off, but he quickly offered a bitter smile. I'll be direct. The company wants this issue to cool down as quickly as possible. If you two can reach a settlement, divorce quietly, and not escalate the scandal, the company might consider offering Silas a dignified exit with severance. But if this blows up further and jeopardizes the federal contract we are trying to secure, the company will be forced to take drastic measures. Understood? Silas was a pawn the company wanted to sacrifice to save the contract. If I kept quiet, the company would let him resign with honor. If I pushed forward, the company would fire him and even investigate his kickbacks to legally distance themselves. Director Callahan, I understand the company's position, I said slowly, but I am the victim. I am the one with the broken leg. Silas and his family haven't even offered a genuine apology yet. On the contrary, they came to the hospital to make a scene and accuse me of being crazy. Do you think I should endure all this just for your company's federal contract? Callahan's expression grew even more uncomfortable. Of course not. Whoever needs to apologize should apologize. Whoever needs to pay compensation should pay. What I mean is that a reasonable settlement would be best for everyone. At the end of the day, you were husband and wife. Taking things to the extreme is very ugly, and it might not be good for your own future. First, support. Then, corporate pressure. And finally, advice that seemed to be for my own good. Too bad I wasn't buying it. Director Callahan, my conditions are very simple. I looked at him. First, Silas must acknowledge his violent behavior in writing and apologize publicly. Second, he must compensate me according to the law, including medical bills, lost wages, emotional distress, and the 3 years of salary they stole from me. Third, he and his family must never harass me or my family again. If he meets these 3 points, I might hold off on filing criminal charges and blowing this up. Callahan's face changed. Public acknowledgement? Isn't that a bit excessive? Silas will still have to work in this industry. That is his problem, I interrupted. When he assaulted me, he should have thought about the consequences. If he doesn't even have the courage to admit his mistakes, why should I forgive him? Mrs. Thorne, Director Callahan, please leave. I dismissed him. That is my bottom line. If Silas accepts, he can contact me through Mr. Sterling. If not, we'll see each other in court. And whether your company fires him or keeps him is an internal matter. It has nothing to do with me. Callahan stood there, his face alternating between red and white. Finally, he sighed and set the fruit basket down. Well, Mrs. Thorne, I hope you recover. I will pass your message along to Silas. He headed for the door, but turned around as if wanting to say something else. Anything else? I asked. Mrs. Thorne, you've changed a lot, he finally said. I've met you a few times before at company events. You were a very gentle person. People change. I repeated what I had told Dr. Cross. When kindness is repaid not with respect, but with more abuse, you have no choice but to pick up a weapon. Callahan looked at me intently, said nothing more, and left. When he was gone, Maeve said quietly, That Director Callahan at least seems reasonable. He's not reasonable, I shook my head. He just weighed the pros and cons and chose the option that benefits him and his company. If Silas were an indispensable asset to the company right now, or if my family were poor and easy to intimidate, he would have come in here with a very different attitude today. That is human nature. That is reality. That's why you can't rely on the goodness of others. You can only become stronger. That night, Mr. Sterling sent me a file. It contained detailed evidence of Silas's kickbacks and falsified invoices, sent anonymously to his company's compliance department and the IRS. There was also a whistleblower letter written in the voice of an anonymous employee, detailing how Silas abused his position, lied to his superiors, and how a person with such moral depravity could not represent the company on a government contract. Tomorrow, these documents will reach exactly where they need to go. I edited the video of your mother-in-law's tantrum at the hospital. I'll post it on several local forums and video platforms. Mr. Sterling sent a text. The headline will be, Evil Mother, In-Law, Throws Tantrum in Hospital, Accuses Daughter, In-Law, with broken leg of mental illness to cover up domestic violence. Post it, I replied. Hitting the send button, I felt no hesitation, nor the euphoric rush of revenge I had anticipated. Only a freezing calm. I knew this would push the Thorne family to the brink. They would go crazy, they would counterattack, they would do extreme things, but I was no longer afraid. There was a time when I feared losing my marriage, being judged, disappointing my parents, facing an uncertain future. But now, the marriage was a cage. The judgment had never stopped anyway. My parents were my unconditional support, and the future, no matter how bad, wouldn't be worse than lying on that kitchen floor waiting to die. It was late at night. My phone lit up again. This time it was a text from Silas. Just one line. But it made my blood run cold. Alara, you want to play? Let's play to the end. Your dad is a retired Marine, right? Your mom is a university professor. What do you think they would feel if they found out the things their little girl gets up to out here? That's it. When the thin veneer of hypocrisy was completely torn away, when the mask of decency could no longer be sustained, they finally bared their ugliest fangs. They threatened my weak point, my parents. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, I slowly typed a reply, hitting every letter with force. Silas, let me tell you something too. If my parents suffer any harm because of this, even just a harassing phone call, I will show you what playing to the end really looks like. You and your entire family. Not a single one of you will escape. If you don't believe me, test me. I hit send. Silas's threat was like a venomous snake in the dark. I didn't warn my parents immediately. They were older. My father had a heart condition, and my mother had high blood pressure. A sudden scare could be dangerous. Besides, I believed that for the moment, Silas was just bluffing. He was drowning in his own problems and wouldn't have the energy to do anything to them. But I had to be proactive. I texted Mr. Sterling, explaining the situation. He replied instantly. Received. I will contact some associates in Georgia to keep an eye on your parents' house, and I suggest your parents go stay with relatives for a few days to avoid any trouble. I took his second suggestion. I called my mom, keeping my tone as casual as possible. I told her the Thornes, backed into a corner, might call to harass them, to block unknown numbers, and to go stay with my uncle for a few days. Alara, did something happen? My mother's voice was full of worry. Did they bother you again? No, it's just a precaution. I tried to make my voice sound calm. If you guys are safe, I have peace of mind. By the way, Uncle Paul Dad's old buddy, Doesn't he work for the local sheriff's department down there? If possible, brief him on the situation. Not to take action, just so he's in the loop. My mother was silent for a few seconds. Hey, Laura, tell me the truth. What are you doing? I know you're hurt. I know you're angry. But don't do anything foolish. Don't get into trouble. Mom, I won't. I gripped the phone. I'm just taking back what's mine. Making them pay for what they've done within the limits of the law. I won't cross the line. Hanging up, I looked out at the dark night through the window. Chicago never slept. The lights of the skyscrapers blinked like countless cold eyes. Silas, you want to play dirty? Challenge accepted. The next morning, Maeve brought me breakfast with a strange look on her face. Alara, have you seen the news? What news? She handed me her phone. The morning local news outlet had pushed a notification. The headline jumped out at me. Family member of former public official suspected of domestic violence. Internet rumor sparks controversy. The article was incredibly ambiguous. It didn't mention Silas by name, but implied the abuser was related to an official from a state agency. It also quoted internet commenters, suggesting that the victim's mental state was unstable and her testimony might not be reliable. Finally, it urged readers to treat online information with caution to avoid harming innocent people. Maeve was red with anger. They're twisting the narrative. Did they pay off the media? They didn't pay them off, I replied calmly after skimming the article. They're pulling strings. Silas's father, Harlan, was a section chief at the DMV before he retired. Even though he's retired, he still has a few connections. Using his contacts to get a friendly outlet to publish a piece that balances the scales and gives his son some breathing room is standard. So now what? We just let them smear you like this? What's the rush? I put the phone down. These kinds of ambiguous articles don't hurt me. On the contrary, they'll infuriate the people who actually know the truth. Sure enough, before noon, the comment section of the article exploded. A flood of anonymous accounts rushed in. Some explicitly named Silas and his tech company. Others posted screenshots of the internal disciplinary actions being taken against him, Mr. Sterling's handiwork. Someone even posted the video of Verna throwing herself on the floor in the hospital lobby. I'm a security guard at the hospital. I can vouch for this. The old lady in the video is the evil mother-in-law who assaulted her daughter-in-law and then came to the hospital to cause a scene. Silas Thorne used to be my coworker. He's always been a grifter and handsy with the female staff. He got reported to HR multiple times. The victim is my neighbor. She's a sweetheart. She married into the Thorne family 3 years ago and they've crushed her. I once heard the mother-in-law call her a hen that won't lay eggs. Total trash. Stay strong. Press charges. Zero tolerance for domestic violence. Public opinion swung entirely in my favor. The article that was meant to whitewash them became the catalyst that poured gasoline on the fire. By the afternoon, Mr. Sterling brought me 2 pieces of news. One good, one bad. The good news was that Silas's company, unable to withstand the pressure, had issued an official statement. Due to personal family matters severely impacting his performance and the company's reputation, the employee in question has been terminated effective immediately. They also hinted they would cooperate with authorities regarding investigations into financial improprieties during his tenure. This meant Silas didn't just lose his job. He was likely facing an investigation for embezzlement. The bad news was that Silas had completely lost his mind. He called me, Mr. Sterling said, his voice grim. He said, if you don't sign the divorce papers on his terms and take down every post on the internet within 3 days, he's going to drive down to your parents' house in Georgia with a gallon of gasoline and a match and take them all out. The room fell silent. Maeve gasped. He's insane. That's a direct death threat. We have to call the police. We have to report this. I remained silent. Silas's madness was predictable, but this exceeded my expectations. I expected threats, but not something this extreme. Mrs. Thorne, I strongly advise we file a police report immediately and request a restraining order for your parents, Mr. Sterling said seriously. This isn't a joke. He lost his job. His reputation is destroyed. He might be facing criminal charges. He has completely lost his grip on reality. A person like that is capable of anything. Reported, of course, I said slowly. But then what? Can the police protect my parents 24/7? Can they arrest him before he commits the crime? With these kinds of "I'm going to kill someone" threats, unless there's an immediate, actionable step taken, it's very hard for the police to take coercive measures. At most, they'll pay him a visit and give a verbal warning. Mr. Sterling fell silent. He knew I was right. So what do we do? Maeve was anxious. Don't tell me he wouldn't actually dare. He wouldn't. I interrupted her with a strange calm. Silas is a narcissist. He values his own life above everything else. A murder-suicide holds no appeal for him. It's just a desperate threat to force me to cave. And if he tries... I looked at them. Mr. Sterling, please transcribe the recording of his threat and package it with the evidence of the assault, the video of the hospital meltdown, and the documents regarding his financial crimes. Maeve, help me page Dr. Cross. I want an early discharge. Discharge? You can barely move your leg, Maeve exclaimed. In a wheelchair, I said. I have to show my face. If I hide in the hospital, he'll think I'm scared. And he'll be emboldened. I want him to see that I'm not afraid of him. That I have nothing to lose either. A person who has nothing to fear is the most terrifying person in the room. Mr. Sterling stared at me. Alara, what are you planning to do? Organize a small press conference, I said. Right here. In a conference room at the hospital. We don't need a crowd. 2 or 3 influential local journalists will be enough. I won't cry. I won't play the pity card. I will simply lay out the facts calmly. I will present the evidence, including Silas's latest death threat. And then I will call the police and officially press charges right there. Maeve and Mr. Sterling were stunned. You want to make it completely public? Mr. Sterling asked. I'm not the one who wants to make it public. He's forcing my hand, I corrected him. He wants to use his insanity to hide his fear. Well, I'll show him what real insanity looks like. When he realizes his threats are useless, that they only turn him into a clown, then he'll truly be terrified. But your safety. The hospital is a public place. There's security. There's media. He wouldn't dare do anything here. He paused. Besides, I need public opinion to shift completely. When everyone knows that Silas isn't just a domestic abuser, but someone who threatens murder, he will become a social pariah. He'll be so busy hiding that he won't have time to hurt anyone. The press conference was scheduled for the afternoon of the 3rd day. During that time, Silas sent me more threatening, delusional messages. One night, drunk, he called screaming, saying he knew exactly which hospital I was in, and that he was going to kill me in the most horrific way possible. I recorded every message, every call, and handed them all to Mr. Sterling. My parents were already safe at my uncle's house. Uncle Paul had arranged for 2 plainclothes deputies to keep an eye on their property. My mother cried several times on the phone, but ultimately decided to trust and support me. Alara, I just want you to be okay, she said, her voice cracking. Nothing else matters. It does matter, I said. Being okay is important. Dignity is too. If I cave this time, I will live forever under the shadow and terror of the Thorne family, and you and Dad will never have peace. The morning of the press conference, Dr. Cross came to check my leg. The healing is progressing, but you absolutely cannot put any weight on it, even transferring to the wheelchair. Be extremely careful not to re-injure it. He frowned. Mrs. Thorne, do you really want to do this? Public opinion is on your side. You don't need to expose yourself and escalate the conflict. Dr. Cross, do you think the conflict can escalate any further? I asked calmly. He's already threatened a murder-suicide. If I don't face this head-on, he'll think I'm terrified and he'll push further. Only when he sees his threats don't affect me, that they actually make him a laughingstock, will he stop. Dr. Cross sighed and didn't push the issue. He just asked a nurse to prepare painkillers and sedatives, just in case. At 2 p.m., in a small hospital conference room, sat journalists from 3 local Chicago outlets and 2 representatives of the internet sleuths who had been supporting me. They were the rational voices who had defended me online and contacted Mr. Sterling to witness this in person. I sat in a wheelchair with my left leg in a cast. Maeve wheeled me into the room. I wore no makeup, just baggy hospital scrubs. My face was pale from blood loss and pain, but my back was straight, and my calm gaze swept over everyone present. I didn't cry. I didn't beg for sympathy. I didn't point fingers in a rage. With the most serene voice possible, I laid out the facts. 3 years of marriage, The extreme control from my in-laws, my husband's indifference and complicity, the continuous psychological abuse and financial control. The night of the assault that shattered my leg, how they abandoned me, and the subsequent threats, harassment, and smear campaigns, culminating in Silas's death threat. With every part of my story, Mr. Sterling presented the corresponding evidence. X-rays, medical injury reports, audio recordings, text screenshots, hospital security footage, the video of Verna's meltdown, Silas's termination notice, and even the article meant to whitewash them. Finally, I played Silas's latest recording. His drunken, slurred voice, full of curses and death threats, echoed through the speakers in the silent room. Alara, you ruined me. You won't get to live a good life either. I know where your parents are. If I can't get to you, I'll get to them. At worst, we all go together. We die together. The recording ended. The room was dead silent. The journalists were typing furiously. The two internet representatives looked visibly enraged. This is everything I've lived through over the past few weeks, I said, my voice slightly hoarse but clear. I organized this press conference not to ask for pity or to incite the public. I just want to say to Mr. Silas Thorne and anyone who thinks like him, domestic violence is not a family matter. It is a crime. Threats and terror will not silence victims. They will only make the hammer of the law fall faster and harder. I paused and looked at one of the journalists. Miss Rivas, I recall you reported on the domestic violence statistics in Cook County. On average, out of 10 reports, only one makes it to trial. Why? The journalist was caught off guard, but answered instantly. It's difficult to secure evidence. Victims, out of fear, financial dependency, or a desire to keep the family together, often endure the abuse and drop the charges. Exactly. I nodded. Because the abusers have no morals, and the victims have too much to lose. But today, I want to use my experience to tell everyone. Do not be afraid. Save the evidence. Report it. If the first officer doesn't listen, tell the second. If one institution ignores you, find another. In this society, there is always a place where justice is served. There is always a law to protect you. With that, I turned to Mr. Sterling and nodded. Mr. Sterling stepped forward and held his phone up toward the cameras. Now, on behalf of my client, Mrs. Alara Thorne, I am calling 911 to report Silas Thorne and his mother, Verna Thorne, for aggravated assault, unlawful restraint, and making terroristic threats. We will submit all pertinent evidence. He hit dial and put it on speakerphone. Ring. Ring. 911? What is your emergency? A clear female voice came through the speaker. Every camera in the room pointed at that phone. Hello. I need to file a report regarding a domestic violence incident and active death threats. Mr. Sterling's voice was firm and clear. He gave my name, my ID, the location of the incident, the details, and the names and details for Silas and Verna. The call lasted about 5 minutes. The dispatcher took down all the information and stated that officers would be dispatched immediately to the Thorne residence and to the hospital to take my official statement and collect evidence. He hung up. The room was silent for a few seconds. Then, applause broke out first, the journalist, then the others. It wasn't thunderous applause, but it lasted a long time. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just felt that the massive boulder that had been crushing my chest for 3 years had finally cracked open. The contents of the press conference hit the major local news networks and social media that very evening in the form of articles, photos, and edited videos. The headlines were increasingly direct. Domestic violence victim speaks out publicly, calls police on live stream, audio leaked. Abusive husband's drunken death threat we die together. She refuses to be silenced. A battered victim's definitive response. Public opinion absolutely exploded. The names Silas and Verna Thorne, along with photos pulled from our wedding and Silas's corporate events, were shared thousands of times. A wave of outrage flooded the internet. Harlan's old contacts were utterly useless now. Someone had even started digging to see if he had any dirty laundry from his time at the state agency. And while all this was happening, what was the Thorne family doing? According to the limited information Mr. Sterling could glean from the police, since the case was an active investigation, the officers split up after receiving the report. One unit went to the Thorne house, and another came to the hospital. At the house, Verna tried to throw a fit, but the police severely warned her, and she was forced to submit to questioning. Silas wasn't home. His phone was off. Harlan just kept repeating over and over that it was a family issue, a misunderstanding, that his daughter-in-law had mental problems. At the hospital, the police took my detailed statement, collected copies of all the evidence I provided, and left me a contact number, warning me to be careful and call immediately if anything happened. After they left, I leaned back in the wheelchair and felt a profound exhaustion. It wasn't fear. It was the tension of a string that had been pulled too tight for too long, finally slacking a bit. Maeve brought me a cup of warm water and said quietly, "Silas's dad came by earlier. Security stopped him downstairs and wouldn't let him up. He said he wanted to see you one last time. Talk in private. I won't see him. Tell security no one from the Thorne family is allowed anywhere near my floor. If they try to force their way in, call the police immediately." Understood. Harlan waited downstairs for a long time. He left when it was fully dark. I didn't know what he wanted to say, nor did I care to know. It would have been threats, flattery, the carrot, and the stick. But we were long past the point of talking. At 9 p.m., my phone rang. It was a completely unknown Chicago number. I picked up and said nothing. On the other end, there was a long silence, just heavy breathing. Then, Silas's voice hoarse, dry, sounding like it was scraped from the bottom of his throat. "Ilara, you won." I didn't answer. I lost my job. My friends and family are laughing at me. My dad's old boss called him just to cuss him out. My mom's blood pressure spiked and she can't get out of bed. "Are you happy?" His voice carried a tone of utter defeat. "What the F do you want? My life?" "I already told you what I wanted a long time ago." I finally spoke. My voice was calm, inflectionless. An apology, a settlement. And for you to leave me alone. You were the ones who refused to give me anything, and instead became more violent and threatened me. Reaching this point was your choice. Apology? Settlement? He repeated. And suddenly started laughing. A laugh that sounded worse than crying. And then what? I'm an abuser. My life is ruined forever. And you're the victim, the innocent one. You take my money and start a new life. Ilara, you calculated this perfectly. Calculated? I also smiled, a smile full of sarcasm. Silas, if I actually knew how to calculate, I wouldn't have married you 3 years ago. If I knew how to calculate, I would have left the very first time I was insulted. If I knew how to calculate, the night my leg was broken, I would have called the police instead of dragging myself out, begging for help. My calculation was letting your mother break my leg and leaving me on the floor waiting to die? He was speechless. I'm telling you this for the last time. I held back all my emotions, my voice cold as steel. A public, written apology. Compensation according to the law. And you disappear from my life and my family's lives forever. If you do that, we get divorced, and I won't push the DA for maximum penalties. If not, we'll see each other in court. And by the way, let your mother get a taste of prison. You know, aggravated assault resulting in permanent injury carries mandatory prison time in Illinois. Your mother is old. I don't know if she'll survive it. You dare? Why wouldn't I dare? I asked. I already died once. What else do I have to fear? Silas, the choice is in your hands. Do you want your pride or your freedom? Do you want to keep that little bit of money? Or do you want your mother to stay out of jail? You choose. With that, I hung up, added the new number to the block list, and cleared the call history. There was no need to record anymore. What needed to be said was said. The final chance had been given. All that was left was to wait for the outcome. I knew Silas wouldn't give up easily. Someone like him, even at the edge of the abyss, would cling to the last straw, even if it was an illusion. But I wasn't in a hurry. The police had opened an investigation. Public opinion was on my side. His social death had commenced. And I was in a hospital bed, with doctors and nurses caring for me, a lawyer protecting me, the public supporting me, and my parents watching my back. Time was on my side. It was late. I asked Maeve to adjust the bed so I could sit up and look out the window. The city lights were the same as always. The city I came to for love. The city that gave me 3 years of nightmares. At this moment, to my eyes, it no longer looked so cold and alien. At least the hospital had saved my life. At least the nurses had shown me warmth. At least the police had taken my case. The media had given me a voice. And Mrs. Gable and strangers on the internet had stood up for me. The world wasn't as dark as the Thorne house. There is always a ray of light when you are most desperate. My phone screen lit up. It was a text from my mom. "Alara, are you asleep?" I made some soup. I overnighted it on dry ice. It'll be there tomorrow morning. Don't think about anything. Just recover. Mom is always here. I stared at the message for a long, long time. Then I turned off the light. In the dark, I let the tears fall silently. They weren't tears of pain or bitterness. They were tears of finally being able to breathe, of seeing the light, of no longer being afraid. I knew this war wasn't over. The Thorne family's final counterattack might be crazier than I imagined, but I was no longer afraid. The broken bone would heal. It might leave a scar, but it would be stronger. The broken heart would also close up, leaving a scar, but it would be wiser. And those who hurt me would finally pay for their crimes. This was a silent slap in the face to every member of the Thorne family. On the third day of the police investigation, the Thornes finally made a real move. It wasn't an apology, nor a settlement. It was a lawsuit. They were suing me for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They demanded a public apology, the removal of all online content, and $50,000 in damages. The plaintiff, Silas Thorne. The lawsuit was delivered by Silas's father, Harlan, through a process server directly to the hospital. Attached to the suit were several blurry photos. They were pictures of me from 3 years ago with a college classmate, cropped to make it look like we were being intimate, along with a medical record from when I went to counseling for depression in college. God knows where they got that. Mrs. Thorne, this is an enemy tactic. Mr. Sterling took the lawsuit with a serious but unsurprised expression. They want to muddy the waters. They use defamation to counter your domestic violence charge. They use your medical history and these supposed relationships to discredit you, to paint you as an unstable, promiscuous woman who is falsely accusing her husband. It's the classic playbook of cornered abusers. I looked at the lawsuit. Every word oozed shamelessness and delusion. How dare they? Maeve trembled with anger. It's obvious they committed a horrific crime, and they have the nerve to sue you and demand money because they have no other options left? I, on the other hand, was strangely calm. The criminal charges, the court of public opinion, the job, the connections they had lost every card they could play. The lawsuit was their last resort. They could drag things out, harass me, and who knows, maybe sway an undecided bystander. So what now? Does this lawsuit hurt you? Maeve asked worriedly. No. Mr. Sterling answered for me confidently. For defamation, there has to be a fabrication of facts and publication. Mrs. Thorne told the truth and has evidence. As for these photos and the medical record, he picked up the blurry photos and the copy of the counseling record, smiling coldly. First, this is an invasion of privacy. The evidence was likely obtained illegally. Second, it has nothing to do with this case. It doesn't prove domestic violence didn't happen. And finally, depression is an illness, not a stain on someone's character. Using this to attack a victim will only make the judge despise them more. But they've filed it. The court will process it. There will be hearings. We'll have to go through the motions. I looked at Mr. Sterling. This will drag on for a long time, won't it? Mr. Sterling nodded. Initial hearings. Discovery. Appeals. With luck, half a year. With bad luck, 1 or 2 years. They want to drag this out, exhaust your time, your energy, and your money so you cave. Then let them drag it out, I said, tapping the lawsuit gently with my finger. Mr. Sterling, let's countersue. Let's sue Silas and Verna Thorne for civil assault, battery, false imprisonment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Let's consolidate their lawsuit and ours into a single proceeding. They want a trial? They'll get one. A countersuit requires preparation time. Plus, Mr. Sterling hesitated. The evaluation of your injuries is sufficient for criminal charges, but running a civil trial alongside it takes time. And most importantly, your mental and physical state. I can handle it. I interrupted him. They want to drag it out? We'll drag it out. Let's see who breaks first. I knew it was a war of attrition. The Thornes, though jobless and with their reputation destroyed, still had the house, even though I paid most of the mortgage, and some savings. I, even with my parents' support and a lawyer, would find a long trial to be physical and mental torture. But I knew I couldn't back down. If I retreated, all previous efforts would be in vain. The Thorns would be emboldened, and I would live forever under the shadow of being branded a liar. Also, I added, make their lawsuit public. Those photos and the medical records, too. If they have no shame, let the whole world see just how shameless they are. Make it public? Mr. Sterling was slightly surprised. It could affect the trial. If they dare present it as evidence, are you afraid of it being public? I smiled coldly. I want everyone to see the filthy tactics an abusive family uses when they run out of arguments. Public opinion is a double-edged sword. If they want to use it to pressure me, they better prepare for it to backfire. Mr. Sterling nodded. Understood. But how we release it, and the wording we use, must be careful so they can't use it against us. Leave it to me. The night their lawsuit was made public, Silas sent me a long text from a new number. There were no threats or screaming, just an almost desperate plea. Alara, stop. I'm begging you. My mom is in the hospital. The high blood pressure caused a cerebral hemorrhage and she's half paralyzed. My dad aged 10 years in a single night, and people point at him on the street every day. I lost my job. I lost all my friends. People recognize me on the street and spit at me. Our family is finished. Do you really want to annihilate us? Those photos and the record. My dad got them through his old contacts. It wasn't my idea. I know I messed up. My whole family messed up. We will apologize publicly. You keep the house, keep the money. I just ask you to drop the countersuit. Make the internet posts disappear. Make this all end. I can't take it anymore. I really can't. Every day I wake up to a flood of death threats. My life is ruined. Do you really want me to die? For the 3 years we were married, give me and my family a chance. Please. I stared at the message for a long time. Verna in the hospital with a cerebral hemorrhage, half paralyzed. The news was a bit unexpected, but thinking about it, it made sense. Such a domineering person, so obsessed with control, going from the queen of her castle to an infected rat, from an abuser to a felony suspect facing prison. The shock and fear were enough to break an older person's health. Harlan, aged 10 years and a night, the man who was always quiet, always on the sidelines, finally paying for his years of complicity. Silas, repudiated by everyone, socially dead. It all sounded very tragic, very pitiful. If I had been the Alara from before, maybe I would have softened. I would have wondered if I was going too far, if I should give them a chance. But not now. I opened the reply box and typed, letter by letter. Silas, now you know what it means to beg. Do you know what I felt when I was lying on the kitchen floor with a broken leg, begging you to take me to the ER? Do you know how I lived these past 3 years? Your mother having a hemorrhage is karma. Your father aging overnight? It happened the moment he watched me agonize on the floor and, instead of helping, told me it was my punishment for disobeying. There is no feeling left between us, not since you allowed your mother to assault me. You want a chance? You can do it publicly and in writing. I already told you my terms. I hadn't finished typing when there was a knock on the door. A middle-aged woman walked in. She looked familiar. It was Silas's aunt, Aunt Beatrice. The aunt the Thorns rarely spoke to. Rumor had it that due to a conflict with Verna, she hadn't visited their house in years. Alara, she called my name with a complex expression. I came to see you. I looked at her warily. Are you here to convince me to stop? Beatrice shook her head and set down a fruit basket. I came to apologize. Apologize? Yes, she sighed. I knew things with my brother and his family weren't right, but to avoid trouble, I didn't do anything. With that, she bowed deeply to me. You don't have to do that, I pulled back. What happened is Silas's and his parents' fault. It has nothing to do with you. It does, Beatrice straightened up, her eyes still red. Even if I don't speak to them, we are family. I knew some things, and I played dumb. That miscarriage you had, it was Verna who delayed taking you to the hospital on purpose. My heart dropped. How do you know? Verna told me. Beatrice's face twisted with a mix of disgust and pain. She was bragging. She said they didn't know if the baby you were carrying was even Silas's, so it was better that you lost it. At the time, I told her she was crazy, but she's my sister-in-law. I didn't dare say more. Then, since you recovered, I let it go. So that was it. The suspicion I never wanted to confirm, the doubt my parents wanted to investigate and I had stopped them from pursuing it was true. And your credit card. Verna always had it. Every time you went to your parents' house, she searched your luggage in case you took anything. When your parents came to visit, she always gave them dirty looks and said nasty things. Beatrice listed one thing after another, and my face grew paler. I knew all that, but you knew? Beatrice closed her eyes in pain. I told him. I argued with Harlan. But it didn't do any good. My brother is a doormat. Silas takes his mother's side. I'm just a married-off aunt. What could I do? I could only distance myself. Out of sight, out of mind. But I didn't know they could be this evil. And that they could beat you, leave you like this. She covered her face and broke down crying. This time, I didn't comfort her. Knowing and staying silent is also a form of complicity. Her remorse was sincere, but my forgiveness wasn't something I owed her right now. I waited for her to cry it out and calm down. Then I spoke. Aunt Beatrice, you didn't just come today to apologize, did you? Beatrice looked up, tears still on her face, but with a firm gaze. You're right. I came to tell you something that might help you. What? Verna's cerebral hemorrhage is fake. Beatrice lowered her voice. I went to see her at the hospital yesterday. She isn't moving the right side of her body. But her eyes, her color, that's not someone who actually had a stroke. I said a couple of nasty things to her, and her eyelid twitched. She moved her fingers a bit. She's faking it. She wants to play the victim so you drop the lawsuit. I froze. Faking it was something Verna was absolutely capable of doing. How can you be so sure? My mother-in-law had a stroke 2 years ago. I know exactly what someone who has had a real stroke looks like. What Verna has is, at most, a functional extremity disorder from a panic attack. It's not a cerebral hemorrhage, Beatrice said confidently. Plus, I heard my brother talking to the doctor. He wanted the doctor to give her a more severe diagnosis, preferably one where she could drop dead at any minute. The doctor refused, but prescribed her some sedatives. So that was it. They wanted to use a terminal illness to emotionally blackmail me, to dodge the law. And one more thing, Beatrice continued. They didn't sue you to win. They sued you to stall, to exhaust you. Silas told my brother to transfer all his savings and the money left in the account you used to pay the mortgage. About $30,000 in total. They want to hide the money so that even if you win the civil suit, you can't collect. My heart sank. Backed into a corner, they were capable of anything. Thank you for telling me all this, I said sincerely. This information is vital. Don't thank me. I don't deserve it. Beatrice shook her head and pulled an old smartphone out of her purse. Here. It's an old phone of Silas's. My grandson was playing with it and, I don't know how, he recovered some old files. There are text threads, photos, some voice memos. I didn't look closely, but it might help you. She set the phone down and looked at me intently. Alara, the Thorne family failed you. Make them pay whatever they owe. Make them face whatever they deserve. Don't go soft. I'm leaving. We probably won't see each other again. With that, she turned and walked out with unsteady steps, her figure looking aged and desolate. I picked up the phone. The screen was cracked, but it turned on. What could be inside? Group chats between Silas and his parents? Proof of how they planned to control me? Evidence of what they were going to do to me? I didn't open it. I handed it to Mr. Sterling, who had just walked in. It might need a data recovery specialist. What's inside could be crucial. Mr. Sterling took the phone with a serious expression. I'll find someone to handle it. And what Beatrice said. I'll investigate. If it's true, they aren't just suspects for domestic violence, but also fraud and concealment of marital assets. This trial is going to drag. Then let it drag. I looked out the window. It was already dark. The city lights were flickering on. Until they go bankrupt. Until their name is dragged through the mud. Until they can never raise their heads again. The phone Beatrice gave me was like a Pandora's box in Mr. Sterling's evidence bag. I found a trusted forensic IT guy, Mr. Sterling said a few days later. A preliminary check shows the phone is passcode locked, but we can bypass it. Recovering deleted data will take 2 or 3 days. Additionally, through some personal channels, I got a copy of Verna's detailed medical chart. He pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase. The hospital's diagnosis is hypertension, causing a transient ischemic attack, thanks in advance, with mild dysfunction in the right extremity. Basically, a mini stroke. Nothing at all like the full paralysis and risk of death she's claiming. Also, the attending noted in the chart, patient's family member repeatedly requested a more severe diagnosis, which was denied. Sure enough, she was faking it, or at least massively exaggerating. As for hiding the assets, Mr. Sterling pushed his glasses up. I've already filed for a preemptive freeze on their accounts, but the balances under the Thorne name total less than $5,000. The account you used to pay the mortgage was emptied 3 days after the incident in 5 separate cash withdrawals, totaling $28,000. The person who withdrew the cash was Harlan Thorne. ATM security cameras caught him clearly. Can we recover it? If the court ultimately determines it was malicious concealment of marital assets during the divorce settlement, we can ask the judge to award him less equity, or none at all. But if they've already spent the cash or hidden it under the mattress, it will be very difficult to physically recover it, Mr. Sterling said honestly. However, with the withdrawal logs and the footage, we can at least prove they are hiding assets. That will severely impact the judge's view of their culpability. I nodded. The money was important, but right now, I was more interested in what was on that phone. 3 days later, Mr. Sterling returned to my room with a flash drive and a thick stack of printed papers. His expression was complex, a mix of rage, disgust, and a certain relief. We recovered most of the data. He plugged the flash drive into his laptop and opened several folders. The chat history was mostly Silas, with his frat brothers and drinking buddies. Most of the photos were irrelevant, but there were some I had never seen. He opened an album labeled 2023. They were our wedding photos, where we looked happy and in love. But scrolling further, the vibe changed. There was a photo of my exhausted back while I cooked, my sleeping profile while I worked late into the night, my pale face leaving the hospital after the miscarriage, all taken secretly, as if he were spying on me. He was spying on me. Not only that, Mr. Sterling opened a hidden folder whose password had been cracked. Inside were more horrifying photos, bruises on my arms, scrapes on my knees, and a photo of a pool of blood on the hospital bed from my first miscarriage. The metadata showed the photo was taken while I was unconscious. Why would he keep these? Look at the chat history. Mr. Sterling opened a WhatsApp backup file and searched the keyword photo. A conversation between Silas and someone named Tank popped up. Tank: "Bro, you sure those bruises on your wife weren't from your mom?" Silas: "What are you talking about?" She fell. "But it's not a bad idea to have a picture. If she starts acting up, I'll show it to her and tell her she has self-destructive tendencies. That she's crazy." Tank: "You're an evil genius, man." Silas: "You can't let women get away with everything. You have to keep them scared. If they're scared, they obey." Tank: "And you took a pic of the miscarriage too? That's brutal." Silas: "Always good to have an ace up the sleeve. If her parents come down here giving me shite, I'll tell them she has a weak body, that she can't have kids, that it's not our fault." Tank: "You're a Fing legend." The date of the conversation was from 3 years ago, when we hadn't even been married for 6 months. So, from the very beginning, he was planning. He was covering his tracks. He saw me as an object to be tamed and controlled, not a person, not a wife. A chill ran from my feet to the top of my head, spreading through my entire body. I gripped the sheets, my knuckles turning white. And there are audio recordings. Mr. Sterling's voice pulled me slightly out of the abyss. He clicked an audio file. At first, there was background noise, like a family gathering. Then, Verna's shrill voice. "Harlan, did you see that? Just because she said the veggies were salty, Silas put food on her plate and coddled her. What is this? She's going to walk all over us. You need to talk to your son." Harlan's hesitant voice. "They're young. It's normal for them to be affectionate." "Normal my ass," Verna yelled. "When I married into your family, if your mother told me to sit, I sat. Daughters-in-law these days are rebellious. Silas, I'm telling you, you can't give women too much freedom. You have to lay down the law." The first time she went to her parents' house, she didn't buy them enough gifts. Don't let her do it next time. And the credit card, take it from her. Silas's voice with an icy laugh. Mom, what's the rush? I'm in a rush. She doesn't know it. I'll wait a bit and find some excuse to take it. If I pressure her now, she might slip away. She dared to marry into our family. Alive, she belongs to the Thorns. Dead, she's a Thorn ghost. Her parents are states away. What are they gonna do? Verna scoffed. By the way, shouldn't she get checked out? Take her to my friend's clinic, see if she can even have kids. If not, she needs treatment. And if she can't be cured, divorce her. She's not leaving us without grandkids. I know. The recording ended. The date was 1 month after my first miscarriage. So, my mother-in-law's supposed desperation for grandkids was a cold, calculated move. My body, in their eyes, was just an incubator. If it didn't work, they'd fix it. If it couldn't be fixed, they'd throw it away. There's another recording. Mr. Sterling's voice was very grave. It's from the night they broke your leg. He opened another audio file. At first, you could hear the sickening crack of the rolling pin hitting bone, and my agonizing scream. Then Verna's insults, Harlan's weak attempt to intervene, Silas's line. This is your punishment for being disobedient. Then my groans of pain on the floor, and in the background, their dinner, the TV, their laughter, creating a hellish contrast. The recording lasted almost an hour, until the sounds of me dragging myself toward the window disappeared. They were still commenting on the World War II documentary. Mr. Sterling stopped the audio. The room fell dead silent. I was trembling from head to toe. It wasn't fear. It was a cold that seeped into my bones, and a profound sense of unreality. What kind of snake pit had I been living in for 3 years? The family, the marriage I thought I had chosen, was from the very beginning a meticulous plan of domestication and slavery. And I, like an idiot, thought that by being good, by enduring, I could earn a little affection. Mrs. Thorne. Mr. Sterling's voice brought me back to reality. This evidence is devastating. The chat history, the photos, the audio recordings, especially the last one, which captures the entire assault and their coldness afterward. This is no longer just a civil dispute. This is irrefutable proof of felony crimes. Aggravated assault, false imprisonment, criminal coercion. We can go after them for all of it. He paused. Furthermore, this proves it wasn't a crime of passion or a sudden loss of temper, but premeditated, continuous physical and psychological abuse. In a criminal trial, this will be the final nail in the coffin. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, trying to calm myself. This evidence can send them directly to prison. Aggravated battery, causing permanent disfigurement or disability, usually carries severe prison time. But with the aggravating factors of continuous abuse, cruelty, their defiant behavior afterward, hiding assets, and the defamation lawsuit, a judge will undoubtedly seek maximum sentencing. Verna is the primary assailant. Even if she's older and sick, even if it's faked, the judge might show slight leniency, but she will do time. Silas, as an accomplice and accessory, will absolutely not escape. Harlan will depend on the plea deal, Mr. Sterling analyzed. And most importantly, with this, their defamation lawsuit collapses under its own weight. The judge will see clearly who is lying and who is maliciously attacking. Good. I said just that one word. What now? I'll make multiple copies of this evidence. One for the police, to amend the criminal complaint. Another for you, for all the upcoming legal proceedings. And another? I looked at Mr. Sterling. Send it anonymously to the internet. Mr. Sterling was taken aback. All of it? No, I shook my head. Select the most important parts. The recording of when they broke my leg, the screenshots of Silas's chat with his buddy, and the recording of them plotting to take my salary and force me into fertility treatments. Accompany it with a simple, explanatory text. Post it, and then we wait. Wait for what? For his final act of madness, I said. When all the masks fall off, when the ugliest truth is exposed to the light of day, what will they do? Will they completely collapse, or will they go insane? Mr. Sterling understood my intention. You want to force them to do something extreme so you can finish them off once and for all. I am merely showing the public the truth, I corrected him. What they do next is their choice. But either way, with this evidence, no matter what they do, They will only sink deeper. That night, the edited recordings and chat screenshots, along with a timeline and narrative of events, hit the most popular subreddits and social media platforms. The headline wasn't sensationalist, just expository. Leaked audio, abusive husband and mother-in-law plot to steal wife's salary, mock her miscarriage, break her leg, and laugh while she agonizes. This time it was Verna's calculating cruelty in the recording, Silas's coldness, my agonizing screams, and their laughter created a contrast so brutal it gave anyone who listened goosebumps. In the chat history, Silas's quote, "You have to keep them scared. If they're scared, they obey" became the top trending tag locally. This isn't a person, he's a monster. I literally cried listening to that audio. The absolute despair she must have felt. Calculating her paycheck? Taking pics of her bruises to call her crazy? This entire family belongs in a psych ward or a maximum security cell. And I actually believed the mother-in-law was sick. Turns out it was all a lie. Disgusting. Lock them up and throw away the key. Social death isn't enough for Silas Thorne. He needs physical bars around him. Public opinion erupted completely. This time, no amount of PR spin or old connections could suppress it or divert attention. All of the Thorne's defamation tactics became a ridiculous joke in the face of such overwhelming evidence. My phone filled with messages of support again. Several women's rights organizations even contacted me offering pro bono legal help. And the Thornes maintained absolute silence. There were no more threats, no more lawsuits, no more relatives at the door, no public responses. Like 3 rats exposed to the sun, they hid in their hole, trembling, awaiting final judgment. But I knew silence is often the most dangerous thing, especially from lunatics who have nothing left to lose. Only hate. Mr. Sterling secretly beefed up security around my parents' house in Georgia. The hospital also increased patrols on my floor. Dr. Cross even suggested I transfer to a highly secure private rehab facility. I refused. I'm fine right here. Whatever was coming would come. Hiding wouldn't solve anything. Besides, I wanted to see what else they were capable of. The moment the door cracked open, I woke up. It wasn't the noise, it was as stealthy as a cat, but an intuition. A chilling sensation of being watched by a venomous snake. I didn't move. I kept my eyes closed, breathing evenly, as if I were in a deep sleep. My left hand slid silently under my pillow and grabbed the personal panic alarm Maeve had secretly given me. At the same time, I wiggled a toe and tapped the emergency call button connected to the nurse's station at the foot of the bed, a device Dr. Cross had specially modified for me. Extremely discreet. The shadow paused at the door, as if letting his eyes adjust to the darkness, confirming my position. Then he approached slowly, with unsteady steps, reeking of cheap alcohol. It was Silas. Even without seeing his face, I would recognize his presence anywhere. He approached the bed and stopped. In the faint light filtering through the window blinds, I could see his bloodshot eyes, his contorted face, and the hunting knife he held in his hand. "Alara," he said in a hoarse whisper, a voice that seemed to crawl out of hell. "You ruined me. You ruined everything." I didn't open my eyes. My heart was beating like a drum, but my body remained limp. I was waiting for an opening, either a response from the nurse's station or for him to lean in closer. I lost my job. I lost my friends. I lost my money. I lost my house. Everyone spits on me. Even my dad called me a failure. He babbled incoherently. The tip of the knife trembled in the dim light. All because of you. Because of you, you evil bitch. Witch. The strong smell of whiskey hit my face. The cold tip of the knife pressed against my throat. The freezing sensation paralyzed me. But I forced myself to hold on. Not to open my eyes. Not to scream. If I kill you, it'll all be over. His voice held a tone of delirious euphoria. You won't be able to sue me. Everything online will disappear. I'll still be Silas Thorne. I can start over. The tip of the knife pressed harder. I felt a sharp prick. In that split second, my eyes snapped open. With all my might, I slammed the hard plastic panic alarm into his temple. Simultaneously, my other hand grabbed the wrist holding the knife, and I drove the knee of my casted leg straight up into his groin. Ugh! The piercing wail of the panic alarm shattered the silence of the early morning. The deafening noise momentarily paralyzed Silas. The blunt force to his temple and the crushing blow to his groin made him let out a guttural scream. The hand holding the knife loosened slightly. I used the momentum to roll to the other side of the bed and crash onto the floor. The impact sent a shockwave of agony through my left leg, as if it were being torn off, but I didn't care. I screamed at the top of my lungs. "Help! He's got a knife!" The door to the room burst open. 2 security guards rushed in, followed by a terrified Maeve and a resident doctor. The overhead lights flicked on, blindingly bright. The sudden light and the rush of people startled Silas. He stood there holding the knife, confused, as if he didn't understand what was happening. "Take him down! He has a weapon!" Maeve screamed. The 2 guards reacted instantly. One tackled him to secure the knife, and the other twisted his arm behind his back. Silas resisted, screaming like a caged animal. But he was quickly subdued. His face was slammed against the linoleum. The knife clattered away across the floor. I sat on the floor, clutching my neck. I felt warm liquid. The tip of the knife had broken the skin. It wasn't deep, but it was bleeding heavily. "Alara!" Maeve rushed over to me. Seeing the blood on my neck, she went white as a sheet. "Doctor, quick!" The doctor examined my wound, cleaned it, and applied a pressure dressing. One of the guards had already radioed for Chicago PD and was holding down Silas, who was thrashing and cursing. "Alara, I'll kill you! I'll kill you! Even in death, I won't let you rest!" Silas, pinned to the floor, kept screaming with a raw voice, his bloodshot eyes full of absolute madness. The police arrived minutes later. The patrol supervisor, seeing the scene, frowned deeply. After a few quick questions, they handcuffed Silas. Sneaking into a hospital room with a deadly weapon. "Attempted murder," the officer said. Looking down at Silas as they hauled him up, shaking his head. "We got it all on camera and multiple witnesses. You're not walking away from this." As they dragged him out, Silas kept turning his head to look at me. The hatred in his gaze was almost tangible. "Mrs. Thorne, you'll need to come with us to the precinct to give a detailed statement," an officer told me. "She is in shock. She has a laceration on her neck." Maeve intervened, standing between us. "Take her statement here at the hospital." "I'll cooperate," I said with a raspy voice. I knew that this time, Silas was finished. Attempted murder, added to domestic violence, kidnapping, and terroristic threats. He was looking at decades in a state penitentiary. I was halfway through my statement when there was a commotion in the hallway. Verna and Harlan had arrived. Verna was in a wheelchair being pushed by Harlan. Her face was sallow, but her eyes were still defiant. She was crying and screaming down the corridor. "My son, let my son go. It was that bitch who drove him crazy." Harlan, tears streaming down his face, was begging the police and security guards who were blocking their path. "It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. My son just came to see his wife. He was nervous. He didn't do it on purpose." When they saw me sitting in a wheelchair with my neck bandaged, giving my statement to a detective, Verna's crying stopped and morphed into vicious insults. "Alara, you witch. You murderer. Why don't you just die? Give me back my son." Harlan suddenly dropped to his knees in front of the police, his face covered in snot and tears. "Officer, please, show some mercy. My son wasn't thinking straight. He didn't mean it. It was this woman who drove him insane. Look at the internet. It's all lies." The police supervisor looked at them coldly. "Whether it's lies or not, a judge will decide. Right now, the evidence is conclusive. Silas Thorne attacked a patient with a knife. He is a suspect for attempted first-degree murder. You are his family. If you continue to disturb the peace and threaten the victim, we will arrest you for witness intimidation and obstruction of justice." Verna was about to hurl another insult, but Harlan stopped her. He looked up at me, his eyes full of pleading. Alara, I'm begging you. For the 3 years we were family, forgive Silas. He's young, he can't go to prison. We'll give you whatever you want. The house, the money, drop the charges. Tell the cops it was a misunderstanding, that he was just drunk, that he didn't mean to." I looked at him in silence. The man who watched me with a broken leg and did nothing was now kneeling on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. A misunderstanding? I finally spoke, my voice raspy from the neck wound. When he put a knife to my throat, it wasn't a misunderstanding. When he called me a witch, A murderer? And said he had to kill me to start his life over. It wasn't a misunderstanding. I paused, and seeing their pale faces, articulated every word. That night when my leg was broken, when I was lying on the kitchen floor dying of pain, and you were in the living room eating, watching TV, laughing, did you ever, for 1 second, think about forgiving me? Silas lost his job. People insult him. You feel sorry for him. But what about me? The 3 years of torture. My shattered leg. That night I almost died. The baby I lost. Who felt sorry for me? You asked me to forgive him. Who is going to forgive me? My voice was soft, but in the quiet hospital corridor, it reached everyone's ears. Verna opened her mouth, but couldn't make a sound. She slumped back in the wheelchair, staring blankly ahead. Harlan, as if all the strength had been drained from his body, collapsed onto the floor, covered his face, and sobbed. The police escorted them out of the building. By the time I finished my statement, the sun was coming up. Morning light poured into the messy hospital room. Dr. Cross came to check my wound again. He confirmed it was superficial and hadn't hit any major blood vessels or nerves. But my state of shock was severe. I needed rest. I'm transferring you, Dr. Cross said, leaving no room for argument. To a private rehabilitation center. You'll be quiet and safe there. Here is no longer secure. This time, I didn't refuse. The transfer was quick. I was moved to a private rehab center in the suburbs, a quiet place with individual rooms, specialized nurses, and strict visitor control. My parents, upon hearing the news, flew up immediately. Seeing the bandage on my neck, my mother broke down crying. My father squeezed my hand, his eyes red, but said nothing. Mom, I'm fine. I comforted them. It's all over now. Was it really over? I didn't know. The physical wounds would heal. The scar on my neck would fade. My leg would slowly recover, but there were things inside me that had broken and would never be the same again. A few weeks later, Mr. Sterling brought me the latest updates. Silas Thorne, facing charges for attempted murder, aggravated domestic battery, unlawful restraint, and terroristic threats, was denied bail and remanded to Cook County Jail, awaiting trial. Verna, charged with aggravated battery and criminal coercion, was out on bail due to her age and illness, even if exaggerated. Harlan Thorne, charged as an accessory after the fact and for concealment of assets, was also facing prosecution. Their defamation lawsuit, lacking evidence and filed by a plaintiff currently indicted for violent felonies, had been dismissed by the judge with prejudice. Furthermore, Mr. Sterling handed me a folder. Based on the evidence you provided and the massive cash withdrawals from Silas's accounts, the family court judge has preliminarily ruled that the Thorne family maliciously concealed marital assets. In the divorce settlement, you have an absolute advantage. The house will undoubtedly be awarded entirely to you, and a portion of the hidden cash will be garnished from any remaining assets they hold. And here are interview requests from several major news networks. Plus, a publishing house contacted me about writing a book on your experience. Mr. Sterling pulled out another stack of papers. Reject all of them. I shook my head. I don't want to be a product for public consumption. This is over. Mr. Sterling nodded. That's for the best. Living your life in peace is the best thing for your recovery. Thank you, Mr. Sterling, I said sincerely. I wouldn't have made it this far without you. You were the one who was strong enough. Mr. Sterling smiled. I merely did my job. A month later, I could walk with crutches. The scar on my neck was barely visible. My parents picked me up from the rehab center and took me to the apartment they had rented in a quiet Chicago neighborhood. It wasn't huge, but it was flooded with sunlight and warmly decorated. Outside the window was a maple tree, its leaves turning a crisp yellow in the autumn breeze. Life seemed to have returned to normal. I stopped paying attention to the internet news. I changed my phone number and cut all ties with the past. Every now and then, Mr. Sterling would call to update me on the legal proceedings. The DA was pushing for maximum sentences. The divorce decree was finalized. The house was mine, and the Thornes were court-ordered to pay massive restitution. Everything was settled. One late autumn evening, I was taking a walk through the neighborhood on my crutches. The sunset dyed the sky a warm orange. My phone rang. It was an unknown Chicago number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Hello? On the other end, there was a long silence. just heavy breathing. Then, an elderly, raspy voice, almost unrecognizable. Elarda. It's me. Harlan. I didn't hang up. I didn't say anything. Silas took a plea deal. He got 7 years. His voice trembled. Verna is paralyzed. For real this time. It's not a lie. The last time she came back from the precinct, she got so worked up she had a massive stroke. This time she really can't move half her body. She can barely speak. I remained silent. The house. The court ordered an eviction. We're leaving in a couple of days. We're moving into a tiny rental outside the city. His voice broke. Elara, I'm sorry. The Thorne family failed you. Are you finished? I finally spoke. My voice was calm, inflectionless. On the other end, I could only hear muffled sobs. Harlan, I called him by his first name. Keep your apology. Say it to your son, to your wife, to whatever God you believe in. I don't need it. I know we don't deserve it. I just wanted to tell you that we got our punishment. We really did. He wept inconsolably. That is your business, I said. It has nothing to do with me anymore. I hung up. The sunset sank below the horizon. The last ray of sunlight vanished, and the sky turned a deep, bruised purple. The streetlights flickered on, illuminating the path home. I looked up and took a deep breath. The air was a bit cold. Winter in Chicago was approaching. But I knew spring would eventually come. The storms that once broke my wings had finally taught me how to fly again.